There's a small silver watch on my wrist right now. My grandmother gave it to me when I was 9. It still keeps perfect time, and I want you to remember it, because this whole story is about time. About the time that was stolen from me. And about the exact minute it all came back. Let me set the scene. A glass conference room on the 4th floor of a building in downtown Indianapolis. 3 of us on one side of the table, me in the center. And across from us, a woman with shaking hands and a cheap portfolio folder, the kind you buy at a drugstore the night before something important. She doesn't know it yet, but the little red light on the conference phone is glowing. The line is open. And on the other end of that line, 12 people are listening to every single word. She also doesn't know the woman sitting in the center seat, the one with the title on the door, the one who holds her whole future in 2 pieces of paper, is me. Her sister. The sister she helped throw away 7 years ago. I slide the first document across the table and I watch her face go from polite, to confused, to white. Let's talk about your resume, I say. And that's where I'm going to leave it for just a moment, because to understand why my hand wasn't shaking, why I felt nothing but a slow, clean calm as I watched my baby sister fall apart. I have to take you all the way back. To a house with a system. To a diaper bag dropped at my feet. To a back door, and a bus ticket, and $17. So pour yourself a cup of coffee. Get comfortable. Because the day my sister found out exactly how expensive her brunch was, that day was 7 years in the making. My name is Della Hartwell. I'm 32 years old. 7 years ago, on the morning of the most important interview of my life, my father looked at me, smiled like I'd told a joke, and said, "Girls like you don't get futures, Della. You get chores." At that exact moment, my mother planted herself in front of the front door with her arms folded. And my little sister walked in the side entrance, dropped a diaper bag the size of a suitcase at my feet, and said, "Watch the kids. I've got brunch." They weren't worried. They weren't sorry. They had decided, a long time before that morning, that my entire purpose on this earth was to hold up everyone else's life while mine sat in a corner, gathering dust. I had one shot at something real. They wanted me to stay their free help forever. So I stepped over that bag. I walked out the back door. And I did not look back. For 7 years, they told everyone I'd fallen apart. They were certain they'd ruined me. They were wrong. And now the tables haven't just turned, they've flipped clean over. My sister is about to learn, in front of more witnesses than she could have ever imagined, exactly what that brunch cost her. Before I go on, if this is already getting under your skin, do me a favor. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the rest. And down in the comments, tell me 2 things, where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. I read every single comment, and I want to know who's in the room with me tonight. If you're already on Team Della, you're going to want to stay till the very end. Because what these people did to me is bad. But what came back around to them? That's the part nobody saw coming. Let's start at the beginning. I need you to understand something before you judge any of us. We weren't poor. We weren't ignorant. We weren't the kind of family the neighbors whispered about. From the outside, we looked downright wholesome. My father, Roy Hartwell, owned a pest control company in Caldwell, Indiana. Hartwell Pest Defense. 8 employees, 4 trucks, a solid name in town, a pew we sat in every Sunday near the front. 2 daughters in matching Easter dresses. On paper, we were the picture of a good American family. But inside that little brick house on Sycamore Street, there was a system. A quiet, unspoken machine that everybody fed, and I was the part at the bottom that everything else stood on. My sister Paige was 2 years younger than me. You would never have guessed it from the way our parents treated her. She was the bright one. The pretty one. The soft one who needed protecting. And when she got pregnant at 19, somehow, in the strange math of that house, that made her more precious, not less. She had a daughter. Lacey. A tiny thing with pale blonde curls and, of all the cruel little coincidences in the world, my eyes. Gray-green, a ring of gold near the middle. My eyes, in my sister's baby. Lacey's first word was, D. That was me. Her first wobbling steps crossed a kitchen floor straight into my arms, not Paige's. Looking back, that should have told everyone something. But I was 20, and I believed that helping your family was simply what decent people did. So I helped. It started so small you could barely see it happening. Della, can you watch Lacey for an hour while I run to the store? An hour became an afternoon. An afternoon became every Saturday. Every Saturday became overnight. Overnight became my life. By the time I was 22, I wasn't babysitting my niece. I was raising her. While my sister tried to become famous on the internet. And I'm not exaggerating that for the camera. I wish I were. Paige started a blog. She called it Soft Life, Sweet Life. She had 14 followers, and 11 of them were related to us. She'd post these dreamy little photos of Lacey in boutique outfits our parents paid for, with long captions about the sacred, exhausting beauty of motherhood. She never once mentioned the woman doing the actual mothering. The blog flopped. So she sold candles for a while, lost $300. Then it was a skincare line nobody bought. Then she decided she was a photographer, booked exactly one wedding, turned the photos in 2 months late, and got a review so bad she cried about it for a week. And not once, not one single time, did our parents tell her to go get a real job. No. Instead, they came to me. Your sister's building something, Della, my mother would say, drying a dish she'd handed me to wash. She's an artist. You're just, here. The least you can do is carry a little more of the weight. If you've ever been the one in your family who was simply expected to carry the weight while everyone else chased a dream, stay with me. Because in a minute, I'm going to ask you to drop one word in the comments. And by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly why. I want to be clear about what here truly meant, since my mother loved that word so much. Here meant I was at Hartwell Pest Defense by 7 every single morning, unlocking the office before the trucks rolled out. Here meant I answered every phone call, soothed every angry customer, and scheduled 4 field technicians across a 6-county route without ever double booking a single appointment. Here meant I ran the invoices. I chased down the unpaid accounts. I built and maintained the entire customer database from a mess of paper tickets in a shoebox. When our office manager quit in the spring of 2017, my father didn't hire a replacement. Why would he? He had me. So I took all of it. Every duty she'd had. Overnight. He never gave me a title. He never put me on the payroll. Not one paycheck, not one, in years. And every time I worked up the nerve to ask about it, he gave me the same warm, fatherly smile and the same 6 words. Family doesn't charge family, sweetheart. Then, depending on his mood, he'd add the part that really stung. This is how you pitch in. Paige has got the little ones to think about. You've just got yourself. By then it was little ones, plural. Cole came along when I was 23. Another car seat in my back seat. Another diaper bag by my door. Another nap schedule taped to my refrigerator in my sister's loopy handwriting. I did the math once, late at night, lying on a couch that wasn't mine, listening to a baby who wasn't mine cry in the next room. 35 hours a week at the office. Another 30, easy, watching Lacey and Cole. 65 hours of work, every week, for nothing. Minimum wage in Indiana those years would have put that at well over $60,000 they simply, kept. Took. Pocketed in the form of my time. But you want to know the truth? It was never really about the money. It was about the fact that they had quietly turned my 20s into a waiting room. A place I sat, patient and useful, while everyone else's life got called to the front desk. I slept 3 nights a week on my sister's lumpy gray couch because Cole had colic in Trent, that was her on-again, off-again boyfriend, the father of her kids, worked nights and was about as much help as a screen door on a submarine. My own childhood bedroom, back at my parents' house. It had become storage. The bed was buried under Paige's laundry that I'd end up folding. I had a corner. A lamp. A small stack of library books I never had a free hour to read. I was 24 years old, and I did not have a life. I had a list of duties that reset itself every morning before the sun came up. And the only thing in that whole house that was truly, completely mine, was the little silver watch on my wrist. My grandmother Ruth's watch. She'd pressed it into my hand the year before she passed and said, "This is yours, baby. Nobody can take your time from you." She had no idea how wrong she was. If you've ever felt like your own family was running out the clock on your one and only life, type the word clock in the comments right now. I want to see how many of us there are. I have a feeling, it's a lot. Something cracked open in me in March of 2019. For about a year by then, I'd been doing something quiet, something just for me. After Lacey and Cole finally went down for the night, when the house was dark and silent, I'd open my laptop and I'd learn. Free online courses, mostly. A project management certificate. Spreadsheets. The basics of human resources, hiring, benefits, employment law. I didn't have a dime for real college, but I had a slow Wi-Fi signal and the quiet hours of other people's bedtimes. So I taught myself. Then I built a resume. And I sat there for an hour trying to make unpaid office manager for my dad's bug spray company sound like something a stranger might want to hire. I applied to 60 jobs over 4 months. 60. One called back. The Halverson Group. A management consulting firm in downtown Indianapolis. The phone screen went well. The video interview went better. And then came the email that I printed out and hid under my mattress like a teenage girl hiding a diary. They wanted me to come in. In person. Final round. Executive assistant to the chief executive officer. $61,800 a year. Health insurance. A budget for classes. Travel. A future. I read that email so many times I could have recited it in my sleep. It wasn't a glamorous job. I'd be running calendars and managing emails and booking flights. But it was real. It was mine. And it was 90 miles away from Caldwell. 90 miles. Far enough, I thought, to finally breathe. The interview was set for Monday morning. I needed to leave the house no later than 11:30 to make the noon bus. I told my parents I had a dentist appointment 2 towns over. I borrowed a navy blazer from my friend Tessa, a nurse I'd known since high school. It was a size too big in the shoulders, but it was the most professional thing I'd ever put on my body. I practiced my answers in the bathroom mirror at midnight. I memorized the company's history until I could have taught a class on it. I had a bus ticket and $17 in my wallet, saved up from 2 years of birthday cards. That ticket was my exit visa. My way out. The door I'd been looking for my whole life. I just had no idea that the people who claimed to love me most were about to slam it shut, and then lie about who locked it. Monday morning. April the 15th, 2019. I came downstairs at 11:15 in black slacks, a white blouse, and Tessa's borrowed blazer. My hair was pinned up neat. I had my folder of resume copies tucked under my arm and my grandmother's watch on my wrist, ticking. My mother was already standing in front of the front door. Arms crossed. Lips pressed into that thin, flat line I'd learned to fear as a little girl, the look that meant a decision had already been made about me, without me. "And where do you think you're going?" she said. "I told you. The dentist." From the kitchen doorway, my sister's voice floated in, light as anything. "She's got a brunch meeting. A real one. A possible sponsor for the blog." Paige stepped into the hall with Cole on her hip and Lacey trailing behind, dragging a stuffed rabbit and that enormous diaper bag. "So you'll need to watch the kids today. It's important." My chest went tight. "I can't. Not today. I have something." "You have duties." My father's voice. He came out of the kitchen holding his coffee mug, in no hurry at all. He wasn't angry. That was the part that stayed with me all these years. He wasn't even a little bit angry. He was amused. He looked at me the way you'd look at a dog that thinks it's a person. Girls like you don't get futures, Della. You get chores. That's just the way the Lord made you. I looked at the clock on the wall. 10:47. The bus left at noon. I had a little over an hour, and 1.5 miles to walk to the station. Paige crossed the hall and set Cole down on the floor. Then she dropped the diaper bag at my feet. It hit the hardwood with a heavy, final-sounding thump. Lacey eats at noon. Cole naps at 1, don't let him sleep past 2:30 or you'll be up all night with him. I'll be back by 4. Probably. She was already looking at her phone. I can't, I said again. My own voice sounded like it was coming from the other end of a long hallway. Paige, I have something today that I cannot miss. And my sister laughed. She laughed in my face. Then she tilted her head and said, more important than your own family, Della? Really? I looked down at Lacey. 4 years old. Blonde curls. My eyes looking right back up at me, full of trust. Play blocks, she said. And for 1 second, 1 single second, the whole machine almost won. The guilt almost did its job, the way it always had. But I looked at the clock again. 10:49. And I felt my grandmother's watch ticking against my wrist, counting down a life that was, for once, going to be mine. So I did the thing I had never done in 25 years. I stepped over the diaper bag. I walked past my sister. Past my father, leaning on the wall, smiling into his coffee. And I headed for the back door, the one off the kitchen that led to the driveway, because my mother was still planted in front of the front one like a guard at a gate. Della Marie, she said behind me, sharp and low. If you walk out that door. I opened it. The April air hit me cold and gray, 40-some degrees, the kind of morning that can't decide whether to rain. I walked down that driveway in $12 flats and I turned left toward town and I did not slow down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. Twice. 6 times. I didn't look. I passed Hartwell Pest Defense on the way. Lights on. My father's truck in the lot. His name up on the sign over a business I'd run for 3 years without a single paycheck. I kept walking. I made it to the bus station with 7 minutes to spare. I bought my ticket with my $17, and the woman behind the counter didn't ask why my hands were shaking so bad I could barely count the bills. The bus pulled out. I took the last row, pressed my forehead to the cold window, and watched Caldwell shrink and disappear. And I thought one word, over and over, like a prayer. Free. I had no idea what that freedom was about to cost me. Because while I was riding toward the best chance of my life, my mother was already back home, opening her laptop, getting ready to take it away from me. The bus stopped halfway, at a gas station in a little nowhere town, and I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. The wind off the highway had smudged my mascara into 2 gray rings. I didn't own a makeup bag, there'd never been money for one. So I wet a paper towel, cleaned myself up as best I could, rolled the blazer sleeves so they didn't swallow my hands, and fixed my hair. I looked presentable. Not polished. But trying. A woman trying. A young mom with a toddler came in and gave me a long, hard look. I dropped my eyes to the sink. I couldn't take 1 more ounce of judgment that day. Not one. The bus rolled into Indianapolis at 5 minutes to 2. The interview was at 2 o'clock sharp. The Halverson Group's offices were 3 blocks from the station. I ran. In $12 flats, with my purse banging against my hip and my folder clutched to my chest like a shield, I ran down a city sidewalk full of people in real suits, and I burst through that lobby door at exactly 2:02, sweating, breathless, and absolutely terrified. A woman was waiting near the elevators. Silver hair, sharp navy suit, kind eyes behind a pair of reading glasses. Eleanor Frost. The chief of staff. She smiled when she saw the state of me. You made it, she said. Just that. Warm. I almost burst into tears right there in the lobby of a Fortune 500 building. I didn't. I pulled it together, smiled back, and said, wouldn't have missed it for anything. She led me up to a glass conference room, the same kind of room that, 7 years later, would change everything. A panel of 3, Eleanor, a sharp-eyed CFO named Marcus Webb, and the head of operations, a woman named Dina Pryor who watched me like she was already deciding something. They asked about software, about handling difficult clients, about juggling calendars across time zones, about discretion. I answered every single one. I talked about Hartwell Pest Defense without ever calling it my father's company, just a small service business, 8 employees. I managed the scheduling. I ran customer service. I built the database. Dina leaned forward. You earned a project management certification on your own time, while working full-time. That's not common. Yes, ma'am, I said. I did it at night. I'm a fast learner and I'm not afraid of hard work. Eleanor made a small note on her pad. What would this position mean to you, Della? And I told her the truth. Not the polished version. The real one. It would mean building a life instead of just surviving one. The room went quiet for a second. Then they all wrote something down at the same time. The interview ended at 3:15. Eleanor walked me to the elevator herself and shook my hand. You're a strong candidate, Della. We'll be in touch within the week. I floated all the way back to the bus station. The ride home felt lighter, somehow. I'd done it. I'd walked out the back door, and I'd run 3 city blocks, and I'd sat in that room and answered every question they threw at me. By the time the bus pulled back into Caldwell that evening, I was already daydreaming about my new life. I didn't know my mother had already sat down to burn it to the ground. The lights were on at the house. Cars in the driveway. I used my key and walked in. Nobody said a word. My father was in his recliner, eyes on the television. Paige was on the floor feeding Cole. My mother stood at the kitchen counter, her back to me, scrubbing a pan that was already clean. I went straight upstairs. I pulled my old duffel bag out of the closet, and I packed for 5 days. Clothes. My laptop. A phone charger. My folder of certificates and resume copies. And $112 in cash I'd been saving out of birthday cards for 3 years. When I turned around, my mother was standing in the doorway. You embarrassed this family today, she said. I zipped the bag. I'm leaving. You'll be back. You always come back. I looked at her. I really looked at her, at the woman who just spent the afternoon doing something I didn't even know about yet, something that would haunt me for 7 years. No, I said. I won't. I slept one last night in that house, on the floor of my own childhood bedroom, because the bed was still buried under my sister's laundry. I left at 6 the next morning. My father's truck was already gone. My mother was asleep. I walked out the front door, the one she'd blocked the day before, and I set my house key down on the kitchen counter, soft, so it wouldn't make a sound. Then I took the early bus to Bloomington, where Tessa had a tiny studio apartment and a couch with my name on it. She opened the door, looked at my face, and asked one question. Are you okay? I will be, I said. She handed me a blanket and a cup of tea, and she didn't ask anything else. That's how you know who your real family is. They don't make you explain. I slept on that couch for 17 days. Every morning I applied to more jobs, and every hour I checked my email for word from Halverson. It came 8 days after the interview. Subject line, executive assistant position. My heart stopped. I opened it. Dear Della, thank you for your interest in the position. After careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with another candidate whose qualifications more closely match our current needs. We wish you the very best in your search. That was it. Generic. Polite. No reason given. I read it 20 times, hunting for a clue, some explanation. There wasn't one. I cried, once, sitting on the closed lid of Tessa's bathroom toilet so she wouldn't hear me. Then I washed my face and applied to 15 more jobs that same night. And here's the part that took the breath out of me when I finally learned the truth, 7 years later. The day after my interview, the morning of April the 16th, someone had sent an email to Halverson's HR department from an account no one recognized. And that email was sitting in my file at that very moment, flagged in red, with a note attached that said 3 words. Do not hire. But on that spring night in Bloomington, I didn't know any of that. I just thought I'd come up short. I thought maybe my father had been right all along. Maybe girls like me really didn't get futures. If you've ever poured your whole heart into something, gotten told you weren't good enough, and quietly believed it, type the word worth in the comments. Because what I found out years later proved that I had been good enough the entire time. I'd been robbed. I got a job at a big box store in May. $11 an hour, running a register. Then I moved up to the customer service desk, handling returns and complaints with a smile, because I'd had years of practice keeping calm while people yelled at me. In June I found a cheap studio of my own. $400 a month, no air conditioning, paper-thin walls, a neighbor who played the same 3 songs all night. But the name on that lease was mine. And that meant everything. I saved every dollar I could. I applied to office jobs every night after my shift. That winter I landed a temp spot at a law firm doing administrative work, $16 an hour. It felt like a mountain I'd climbed. Then the world shut down in the spring of 2020. The temp jobs were the first to go. I had $3,200 to my name and a whole lot of fear. Through all of it, the layoffs, the lockdown, the lonely nights, I did one small thing every single year, without fail. On April the 3rd, Lacey's birthday, I mailed a card. Happy birthday, sweet girl. I think about you every single day. Love, Aunt Della. I never got a reply. Not once. I sent them to my parents' house anyway, knowing Paige came around for Sunday dinners and free babysitting. I figured even if nobody read them to her, the cards would be in the house. Close to her. I just signed them Della with a city, no return address, no phone number. I didn't want them to find me. I just wanted Lacey to know somebody out there remembered her. 7 cards. 7 years. Silence. And then one sleepless night in June of 2020, rent due in 8 days and $1,800 between me and the street. I was scrolling a job site at 2 in the morning, and there it was. HR coordinator. The Halverson Group. Indianapolis. The company that had rejected me. Hiring again. I stared at that posting for 3 solid hours. And then, at 2 in the morning, with nothing left to lose, I applied. New email. Updated resume, now with real outside experience on it. Tessa's new address in Indianapolis, since she'd just moved there herself. A phone interview a week later. A video interview after that. And then, on the 2nd of July, an offer. HR coordinator. $44,000 a year. I sat down on the floor of my little studio when I read it, and I cried so hard I couldn't catch my breath. I called Tessa. I did not call my family. On the 13th of July, 2020, I walked back into the Halverson Group, the same building, the same lobby, the same glass elevators. A different door. A different job. A whole different woman than the breathless girl who'd sprinted in a year before. And I made myself a promise on that elevator. This time, you make it stick. That first year was hard in the good way. I processed new hire paperwork. I scheduled interviews. I filed benefits forms and learned every system the company had. I stayed late. I asked questions nobody else thought to ask. I raised my hand for every project nobody else wanted. And somebody noticed. Dina Pryor, one of the 3 people who'd interviewed me back in 2019, now risen to Vice President of Operations, pulled me aside one afternoon. You're good at this, she said. Have you ever thought about getting your HR certification? Every day, I told her. Can't afford it yet. The company has tuition help. And I'll sponsor you myself. I studied at night, the way I always had. I passed that certification the following winter. My first real professional credential, with my name printed on it. I bought a frame for it at a dollar store and hung it on the wall of my apartment, and some nights I'd just stand there and look at it. Then the climb began in earnest. HR specialist. 51,000. I ran investigations, I handled compliance, I led the benefits enrollment every fall. Then senior specialist. 59,000. Then, the next year, HR manager, 74,000, with a team of 3 people reporting to me. And then, one spring morning, the title I'd dreamed about in a borrowed blazer. HR director. $96,000 a year. An office on the 4th floor with a window that looked out over the whole Indianapolis skyline. And on the door, in clean gold letters, Della Hartwell, Human Resources. I took a picture of that door. I didn't send it to a soul. I just kept it on my phone, and sometimes, on the hard days, I'd look at it and remember the girl on the kitchen floor playing blocks while her own life ticked away. I'd built something real. Something mine. Nobody had handed it to me. I'd climbed every single rung, and I'd done it in the very same building where these people thought they'd finished me off. I thought that was the full circle of my story. I was wrong. The circle hadn't even started closing yet. My life in Indianapolis was quiet. Not flashy. Just real, and steady, and peaceful. I moved into a nicer apartment with a real bedroom and quiet neighbors. I had a small, tight circle of friends, Tessa, a couple of coworkers, a sweet old man down the hall with a beagle I'd watch when he traveled. I started therapy and slowly, week by week, I worked through everything that house had done to me. I learned that, I don't owe them anything, is a complete sentence. I learned to be proud of myself without needing anyone else to be. One Thanksgiving, alone in my apartment with a grocery store rotisserie chicken, I almost called home. I had my mother's number pulled up. I stared at it for 5 whole minutes. And then, instead of calling, I deleted it. All of them, my mother, my father, my sister. Erased every number. I'm thankful, too, I whispered to my empty kitchen. Thankful for the back door. I was, for the first time in my entire life, free and at peace. And then came a Tuesday morning in April of 2026. I was at my desk, working through applications for a new project coordinator role we'd posted. 89 resumes in a spreadsheet, names, emails, phone numbers in neat little rows. I was sipping my coffee, scrolling, half on autopilot. And then my coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. Paige Coburn. Formerly Hartwell. My sister. She'd gotten married, Trent must have finally put a ring on it. And there was the Caldwell area code, right there in the phone number column, sitting in my spreadsheet like it had every right in the world to be there. My hands didn't shake. I'd trained that out of myself years ago. But I felt my pulse climb in my throat. Paige had no idea I worked here. She didn't follow me on anything. She had no clue where I'd landed. This had to be a coincidence. Halverson was a good company. She was applying because it was a good job. She didn't know she was about to hand her future, on a silver platter, to the sister she'd helped throw away. I clicked on her file. Her resume loaded, a clean, professional template, the kind you download for free. And I scrolled down to her work history. And that is where the floor dropped out of the room. Hartwell Pest Defense, Caldwell, Indiana. Operations Manager. January 2017 to December 2019. And underneath it, the bullet points. Managed daily office operations for an 8-employee service company. Coordinated scheduling for 4 field technicians across a 6-county service area. Processed invoices, maintained customer database, handled accounts receivable and payable. Reduced scheduling conflicts by 35%. Maintained a 98% customer satisfaction rating. I read it 3 times. Slowly. Every single line on that page was my work. The exact years I'd worked there for free. The exact duties I'd carried. The 35%, that was a number I'd calculated myself, late one night, to feel like I'd accomplished something. The 98% satisfaction rating, I'd worked that out in 2018 from the customer feedback cards I designed and mailed myself. Paige had worked at Hartwell Pest Defense for exactly 0 days in her life. She'd had Lacey in 2015, dabbled in a failed blog and a failed candle business and a failed photography hobby, and never once held a real office job. She had stolen my entire history. My years. My time. And put her own name on it. If you just felt your stomach drop the way mine did, you and me both. Stay right there. Because it gets so much worse, and then it gets so much better. I scrolled down to her references. 3 of them. 1, Roy Hartwell, owner, Hartwell Pest Defense. My father. He would lie for her without blinking, he always had. 2, Carol Denning, a contact from Caldwell Community Church. 3, Bridget Salas, from a photo studio in town. A fake, former colleague, for a job my sister never held. I pulled up her public profile online. Her bio read like a stranger I'd never met, mom of 3. Operations professional. Family-focused leader. And her job history told the real story, the one she'd buried under my stolen resume. A 3-month stint as a sales associate. A 5-month run as a dental receptionist. 4 months at a gym front desk. A vague year of self-employed virtual assistant, with no clients anyone could name. Gap after gap after gap. Nothing that lasted longer than a season. Paige was desperate. That much was clear. And she'd lied through her teeth to get her foot in the door. But before I decided what to do, I needed one more piece. I needed to look in my own past. I opened our applicant tracking system and searched my own name. Della Hartwell. 2 results came back. The first, an application from June of 2020. HR coordinator. Hired. That one I knew. The second, an application from April the 15th, 2019. Executive assistant to the CEO. Rejected. My breath caught. I clicked it. There was my old resume. My cover letter. And then the interview notes, from Eleanor, from Marcus, from Dina. I scrolled through them with my heart pounding. Self-motivated. Impressive initiative. Composed under pressure. Strong candidate. Recommend offer. They'd wanted me. They had wanted to hire me. And then, at the bottom, a section I'd never been meant to see. HR notes. A red-flagged entry, dated the morning of April the 16th, 2019. Received email from a concerned party regarding candidate stability and reliability. See attachment. Recommend we do not proceed. T. Mullins. There was a link. My hand hovered over it for a long moment. Then I clicked. A document opened. An email. Dated April the 16th, 2019. 8:47 in the morning, less than 24 hours after I'd run 3 blocks in $12 flats to chase my future. From concern.familyfriend19 at a free email address. To Halverson HR. Subject, concerns about your candidate, Della Hartwell. And I read it. Slowly. Every poisoned word. To whom it may concern. I am writing as a concerned member of the community who knows the Hartwell family personally. I feel it is my duty to inform you that Della Hartwell, who interviewed for a position with your company yesterday, has serious personal and emotional problems that make her unfit for professional employment. Yesterday, Della abandoned her 4-year-old niece in the middle of a family emergency. Her sister had an urgent commitment, and Della had agreed to provide childcare, but instead she left the child unattended and vanished for hours. The family has been deeply worried about her increasingly erratic and unstable behavior. Della has never held steady employment. She has a long history of quitting jobs and walking away from her responsibilities with no notice. Her family has tried again and again to help her, but she refuses all support. She may interview well. She is good at appearances. But her actual behavior is unreliable and concerning, and I felt morally obligated to share this for the safety and good of your workplace. Sincerely, a concerned friend of the family. I sat there at my desk and I read it twice more, and with every pass, I could feel something cold and clear settling over me. Every single sentence was a lie wearing the costume of concern. Agreed to provide childcare. I'd been ambushed in a hallway with a diaper bag dropped at my feet. Left the child unattended. My sister was standing right there. My parents were standing right there. The child was never alone for 1 second. Never held steady employment. I had worked 65-hour weeks for 7 years and never been paid a dime. Erratic and unstable. I had simply, finally, walked out the back door of a house that was eating me alive. Refuses all support. I had escaped their control. That's all support had ever meant in that family. Now, I'd spent years in HR by then. I knew exactly how to check the bones of an email. So I pulled the metadata. I traced the address it was sent from. And there it was, in plain black and white. The email had been sent from a residential connection in Caldwell, Indiana. I cross-referenced it against the one address I'd know anywhere, the one I'd run away from at 6 in the morning with my house key left on the counter. My parents' house. Sycamore Street. My mother. My own mother had sat down at the kitchen table the morning after I left, the very same table where I'd folded my sister's laundry 1,000 times, and she had typed out those lies and mailed them straight into the future I was trying to build, like poison into a well. They hadn't just blocked the door that morning. They had hunted me down and burned the bridge behind me so I could never cross back. And for 7 years, I had carried the quiet shame of thinking I just hadn't been good enough. If you're on Team Della right now, if your blood is boiling the way mine was, drop Team Della in the comments. Because what I did next, I'd waited 7 years to do, and I didn't even know it. I sat at my desk for a long time, the cursor blinking, my coffee gone cold. I had 3 choices, and I knew it. I could quietly reject my sister's application, recuse myself, hand it to a coworker, and never speak to any of them again. Clean. Safe. I could blow it all up, call them, scream, drag every ugly thing into the light. Or I could do my job. Exactly. By the book. Let the truth they'd buried come crawling back into the daylight all on its own. I remembered something my therapist had told me. Justice doesn't have to mean revenge, Della. Sometimes justice is just the truth, finally said out loud, in front of the right people. So I made my decision. I would run a standard employment verification. The same one I'd run on 100 strangers. The same call any HR director would make. I picked up my office phone and dialed Hartwell Pest Defense. In the state of Indiana, only one party has to consent to a recorded call. I pressed record. It rang 3 times. Hartwell Pest Defense, this is Roy. My father's voice. I hadn't heard it in 7 years. My grandmother's watch ticked against my wrist, and I kept my own voice cool, professional, smooth as glass. Good morning. This is Della Hartwell, HR Director at the Halverson Group in Indianapolis. I'm calling to verify employment for an applicant who listed your company. Paige Coburn, formerly Paige Hartwell. A long, dead silence on the line. Della? This is a routine employment verification, sir, I said, like I'd never heard the name in my life. Can you confirm that Paige Coburn worked at Hartwell Pest Defense from January 2017 to December 2019, as operations manager? Another pause. I could hear him recalibrating, deciding to play along. Yes. Yes, that's right. Can you describe her responsibilities? She ran the office. scheduling, the invoices, the customer service. She was real good at it. Full-time. Full-time. Very reliable girl. And why did her employment end? His voice got smoother now, more confident, settling into the lie like an old chair. She left to focus on her family. Had the kids to raise. Would you rehire her? In a heartbeat. Paige was one of the best people we ever had. Every word a lie. And every word recorded. Thank you, I said. Just one more question, Mr. Hartwell. I let the pause stretch. During that same period, January 2017 through December 2019, did you have any other employee performing those exact operations manager duties? The silence on the line was long enough that I could hear him breathing. No, he said. Just Paige. And there it was. The lie that mattered most of all. Because I had been there. I had tax records that listed me as a dependent in that house, not an employee. I had old customer emails, dozens of them, addressed to Della Hartwell, Hartwell Pest Defense. I had proof, sitting in a folder, that I had built every single thing my sister was now trying to sell as her own. That's all I need, I said softly. Thank you for your time. I hung up. I saved the recording. And I wrote one line in my sister's file. Employment verification complete. Significant discrepancies noted. Recommend in-person interview to clarify. Because more than anything in the world, I wanted to look her in the eye. If you've ever had to keep your voice steady while your whole heart was screaming, and you held it together anyway, type proof in the comments. Because that recording was just the beginning of mine. I sent the interview invitation a week later, through the system, cool and formal. Dear Paige, thank you for your application for the project coordinator position. We'd like to invite you for an in-person interview on Monday, April 14th, at 10 a.m. You will meet with Della Hartwell, HR Director, Grant Holloway, CEO, and Dina Pryor, VP of Operations. Please bring a government-issued ID and be prepared to discuss your operations management experience. She replied the same day. Thank you so much. I'll be there. Looking forward to it. No pause. No flicker of recognition at my name. No question at all. 7 years of silence, and my own sister had never once gone looking for me. Never wondered where I'd gone. Never cared enough to type my name into a search bar. I told Grant and Dina what I suspected, possible resume fraud, and asked to lead the interview myself. They trusted me. They said yes. Monday morning. April the 14th, 2026. 5 minutes to 10. I sat in the glass conference room with Grant on one side and Dina on the other, and I watched the lobby through the wall. At 2 minutes to 10, she walked in. Brown hair, a little tired around the eyes, a business casual outfit from a discount rack, clutching a cheap portfolio folder. 29 now. Trying so hard you could see it from across the room. She gave the receptionist her name, got her little visitor badge, and looked around for whoever was meeting her. I stood. I walked out to the lobby. And I made eye contact. She looked up. And the color drained right out of her face. I extended my hand, calm and even. Paige. I'm Della Hartwell, HR Director. Welcome to the Halverson Group. Her hand, when she took mine, was cold and damp. Della. I didn't know you worked here. 7 years is a long time, I said. Things change. Please, follow me. She followed, her heels clicking fast and uneven on the floor. I could hear her breathing pick up as we passed the glass room where Grant and Dina waited. I opened the door, motioned for her to sit, and took the center seat myself. The control seat. The seat my father had always sat in. I smiled. Professional. Even kind. Let's get started. Walk us through your resume. The first 20 minutes were ordinary. Grant and Dina asked about project coordination, software, time management. Paige stumbled through it, nervous but rehearsed. Then Dina leaned in. I see here you worked at Hartwell Pest Defense. Tell us about that. Yes, Paige said, gaining a little confidence. I was operations manager there for 3 years. A small family business. I managed everything: scheduling, billing, customer service. It taught me to wear a lot of hats. I took a note. I kept my face still as a pond. It was my father's company, you know, she added, and I watched her say my life like it was hers. And the dates again? I asked. 2017 to 2019. Full-time. Grant asked about her employment gaps. She gave him the rehearsed answer, focusing on family, some freelance work, ready to come back to structured employment now. Could you provide a reference from any of those freelance clients? I asked. She faltered. They were mostly informal. Word of mouth. Nothing I have on paper. At 10:22, right on the schedule I'd quietly arranged, Grant stood. Thank you, Paige. We'd like to take a quick break. Della will continue with a few follow-up questions. Grant and Dina left. The door clicked shut. And it was just the two of us, sisters, alone in a glass room. She finally looked at me. Really looked. Della, I swear I didn't know you'd be. I held up one hand. And I slid the first piece of paper across the table. Let's talk about your resume, I said. I pointed to the Hartwell section. You listed yourself as operations manager. January 2017 to December 2019. Is that accurate? Yes. Full-time. 40 hours a week. You were paid? A pause. It was more of a family contribution. But I did the work. I called your reference. Roy Hartwell. He confirmed you worked there full-time and that you were one of the best he'd ever had. I let that sit. Did you ask our father to lie for you, Paige? I did work there. I helped out. I kept my voice low and level. That's a little different from full-time operations manager for 3 straight years, isn't it? I don't understand what you're. I worked at Hartwell Pest Defense, I said, from January 2017 to December 2019. Unpaid. Full-time. Doing every single job listed on this page. I wrote these accomplishments, Paige, because they're mine. You took my history, the years they stole from me, and you put your name on it. Her face went red, then white, then red again. Her mouth opened and shut. I needed a job, she finally whispered. I have 3 kids. Trent left. I'm all alone. I just needed something on the resume that looked real. I said nothing. 10 full seconds of silence. Then I slid the second piece of paper across the table. What's this? An email, I said. Sent to this company's HR department the morning after I interviewed here, 7 years ago. From an account that doesn't exist. It said I was unstable. That I'd abandoned your daughter. That I was unfit to ever be hired anywhere. I don't know anything about. It came from Mom, I said. I traced it. It was sent from the house. From the kitchen, the morning after I walked out. I didn't know about that, Della, I swear. But you knew they sabotaged me. My voice never rose. That was the part that seemed to frighten her most. You were there that morning. You dropped that bag at my feet. You watched me leave, and you let them tell the whole town I'd had a breakdown. I was 22, she burst out. I had a 4-year-old and another baby on the way and I was drowning. I needed help. And I needed one day, I said. One day, for one interview, for one chance at a whole life. And you all decided your brunch was worth more than that. She started to cry. Not soft tears. The ugly, gasping, desperate kind. And I felt nothing. I'd cried all my tears for these people years ago, alone, on a bathroom floor. Then Paige said the thing that cracked the whole morning wide open. "You don't know what it was like after you left," she sobbed. "Everything fell apart. We needed you." And that's when I noticed the conference phone. The little red light was on. The line was active. And my own phone, face up on the table, lit up with a text from Dina. "Della, the conference line. It connected early. 12 people are on it." My assistant had booked a client call in that room for later that afternoon and set up the bridge early to test the audio. The system had glitched and connected the whole thing at 10:30. And 12 people had been quietly listening since the words, "Let's talk about your resume." Grant, the CEO. Dina. 3 senior managers. 6 clients. And Eleanor Frost, the very woman who'd interviewed me, breathless, in this same building, 7 years before. I looked at the phone. I looked at my sister, still crying, still oblivious, still talking. And I made a choice. I could have hung that line up. 7 years ago, I would have. I'd have protected her on instinct, the way I'd protected her my whole life. But I'd learned something in those 7 years. The truth deserves witnesses. So I left the line open. Paige kept going, sobbing, not seeing the light. "Mom said you'd come crawling back. She said you'd fail without us. But you didn't. You got this big job and you didn't even tell us. You just let us think you were nothing. Do you know what Dad says about you? He says you're selfish. He says you abandoned your family and now you sit up here in your little office judging the rest of us." "I'm not judging you, Paige," I said quietly. "I'm conducting a background check. And you committed resume fraud." "It's not fraud. I helped at the company." "You helped," I said. Past tense. "Once in a while. While I worked 65-hour weeks for free. You claimed my job, my work, my whole history. And our father got on the phone and lied to verify it. We're family," she screamed, standing up now. "You're supposed to help family." "I did," I said. "For 7 years. And the one single day I tried to help myself, you all blocked the door." She was shaking, makeup running, voice climbing toward the ceiling. "You think you're better than me because you've got some fancy title on a door? You're nobody, Della. You'll always be nobody. Girls like you." She stopped. Because I was just looking at her. Calm. Steady. "Finish that sentence," I said softly. She couldn't. She sat back down, and her whole face just collapsed. My office phone rang. I picked it up. It was Grant. "Della," he said, gentle. "End the interview now. Security's already in the hallway." "Understood," I said. I set the phone down and looked at my sister. "This interview is over." The door opened. 2 security officers stepped in, calm, professional, not unkind. "Ma'am," one said, "we'll need you to come with us." Paige looked up, lost. "Wait, what? Why?" "You're being escorted out for a fraudulent application," I said. "It's company policy." "Della, please." "I'm sorry. I just needed this. Please don't do this to me." I stood. "I'm sorry, Paige. I can't hire someone who falsified a resume and had a reference lie to verify it. I have to protect this company. You understand." They walked her toward the elevator. I didn't follow. I stood in the conference room doorway and I watched her go. At the elevator, she turned and looked back at me one time. My face was calm. Not cruel. Not gloating. Just, done. Then I turned back to the table, leaned toward the speakerphone, and spoke clearly. "This concludes the candidate interview. I'll have a full report to leadership by end of day. Thank you all for your time." And I ended the call. If you felt that, if you felt 7 years of weight come off in that 1 second, type mine in the comments. Because everything they took from me, I was about to get back, with interest. I sat alone in that glass room for 5 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just sat there with my grandmother's watch ticking on my wrist, and I breathed. Then my desk phone rang. Grant's office. I walked down the hall certain I was about to be reprimanded for the scene that 12 people had just overheard. I opened the door, and there they were, Grant, Dina, Eleanor Frost, and our general counsel, a quiet, careful man named David Okafor. Grant leaned forward. Della. That was one of the most professional handlings of a conflict of interest I have ever witnessed. You followed protocol to the letter. You documented everything. You gave her every opportunity to come clean. He paused. Are you all right? I blinked. Yes. I'm okay. Dina spoke up, her voice soft. We heard all of it. The sabotage in 2019. The fraud. What that family did to you for all those years. Della, I am so sorry. Then Eleanor Frost, the woman who had smiled at me in the lobby 7 years ago and said you made it, looked at me with tears standing in her eyes. Della, she said. I was your interviewer in 2019. I never saw that email. HR flagged your file and told me you'd withdrawn, and we moved on to other candidates. If I had known, if I had seen it, her voice broke. She couldn't finish. David, the lawyer, cleared his throat gently. We should talk about next steps. The candidate committed application fraud. We have a recorded reference giving a false verification. We have 12 witnesses to her admission. And we have clear evidence that your family deliberately sabotaged your application in 2019. Della, you have real grounds for legal action here, if you want it. I thought about that for a long moment. About my mother at the kitchen table. About my father lying into a phone. About 7 years of carrying their shame like it was mine. I don't want to take my family to court, I said finally. I just want it on the record. I want the truth written down somewhere it can't be erased. And I want to make sure Paige can't do this to some other company that doesn't know her. Grant nodded. We'll flag her in our industry network. That's a professional consequence, not a personal one. It's fair. Dina reached over and put a box of tissues in front of me. And it was only then that I realized I was crying. Not from sadness. From something I didn't have a name for yet. Maybe it was just the feeling of being believed. I went home that afternoon, turned off my phone, and slept for 14 hours straight. The next 2 days were chaotic. Paige called my work line a dozen times. My father left a voicemail dripping with outrage. This is a family matter, Della. You had no right. Call me back. My mother called the company's main line asking for me. My father drove 90 miles himself, showed up in the lobby, demanded to see me, and refused to leave until security called the police and walked him out for trespassing. The emails came too. One from my mother stays in my memory word for word. Della, I don't know what happened to you out there. You used to be such a sweet girl. Now you're cruel. Paige is devastated. The children are asking why their Aunt Della hates them. Your father is beside himself. Please, for the sake of this family, be the bigger person. Get Paige that job. You have the power. Fix this. Be the bigger person. After everything. After the door, and the email, and the lies, and 7 years of silence. I didn't reply to a single one of them. Instead, I hired a lawyer. A formal letter went out to all 3 of them, my mother, my father, my sister. No contact by phone, email, or in person. Any violation, and we'd seek a restraining order. The letter included a copy of the 2019 sabotage email, the trace back to their home, and a simple statement: Della Hartwell wishes to have no contact with this family. All communication will go through legal counsel. Then there was silence. 3 full weeks of it. The first real quiet I'd had from those people in my entire life. And then, out of nowhere, came a message from the one person I never expected. It came as a message to my professional account. From a name that stopped my heart. Hi. This is Lacey. Paige's daughter. Your niece. I'm 11. I know you probably won't answer. But I wanted to say thank you for the birthday cards. I kept every one of them. Mom threw them in the trash, but I always took them back out and hid them in a shoebox under my bed. I have 7 of them now. I don't really know what happened between you and my mom. She won't talk about it. Grandma says you abandoned us and Grandpa says you're selfish. But you sent me a card every single year for 7 years. That doesn't seem like abandoning to me. I found your page because Mom was looking you up and crying. I saw you work at a big company. I think that's really cool. I want to work at a big company someday too. I'm not asking you to talk to my mom. I just wanted you to know I got the cards. And I miss you. I don't really remember you, but I miss you anyway. I read that message and I put my face in my hands and I sobbed for 20 minutes. Then I wrote back. Carefully. Gently. Lacey. Thank you for this message. It means more to me than you could ever know. I'm so glad you kept the cards. I thought about you every year on April 3rd when I mailed them. You're a brave kid for reaching out, and I can already tell you're going to do something wonderful with your life. I'm not ready to have contact with your mom or your grandparents right now. But you can write to me anytime. If you ever need advice, about school, about a job someday, about anything, I will always write you back. Take care of yourself, sweetheart. Aunt Della. I didn't give her my phone number. I kept it to messages. I didn't promise her more than I could keep. But I made her one promise I knew I'd never break, that if she reached out, I'd always answer. A month later she wrote again. Mom got a job at a call center. She's mad all the time. But I got an A on my English essay and I wanted to tell somebody who'd care. And I did care. I cared so much. That little girl, with her shoebox of rescued cards and my eyes looking out of her face, that was the one piece of my family I got to carry out of the wreckage. And she was worth every single bit of it. Late that summer, I got an email from Eleanor Frost. The subject line just said, "Something you deserve to see." Della, she wrote. After our conversation, I went back through the old files from 2019. And I found something I need you to have. In 2019, we were going to offer you the executive assistant position. I had already drafted the offer letter. Salary, $61,800. A start date at the end of April. It was finished. It was ready to send. And then your file was flagged because of that email, and I was told to stop the process. I never sent it. I'm so sorry we failed you. Attached is the offer letter. It's unsigned, and it's 7 years too late. But I wanted you to hold it in your hands and know the truth. You had earned that job. You were good enough then. You're extraordinary now. I opened the attachment. And there it was, an offer letter with my name on it, dated April the 22nd, 2019. The job I'd run 3 blocks in cheap flats to earn. The job they stole from me before I ever knew it was mine. I printed it. And I bought a frame, and I hung it on the wall of my home office, right next to my current business card. The proof of what they took, right beside the proof of what I built anyway. The validation I'd been aching for 7 long years, finally in my own 2 hands. I had been good enough. I had earned it. They had robbed me of it. And I'd gone out and built something even better with my own bare hands. It's April again as I tell you this. 1 year since my sister walked into that glass room. And I want to tell you where things stand. I'm still at the Halverson Group. But in January, they promoted me. I'm Vice President of People Operations now. I started a small mentorship program for young people climbing out of controlling families, kids who grew up being told they were only good for chores. It's quiet work. But it matters more to me than any title ever could. My parents retired and moved south. No contact. The letter held. My sister works retail back in Caldwell. She blocked me everywhere, which is fine. I never planned to knock on her door. But Lacey still writes me. She's 12 now, thriving in spite of all the chaos around her. We talk about books, and school, and the big plans she's already making. I'm not her mother. But I'm someone who sees her. And I've learned that sometimes that's the most important thing one person can be for another. I'm dating someone now. Slow. Healthy. No rush. I have savings in the bank and good credit and a car I own outright and a life I built from absolutely nothing but Wi-Fi, stubbornness, and a single back door. And I still wear my grandmother's watch. It still keeps perfect time. She told me, all those years ago, that nobody could take my time from me. She was wrong about that, they took years. But she was right about the thing that mattered. Because in the end, the time came back. Every minute of it. With witnesses. This morning, I was training a brand new HR coordinator. 22 years old, nervous, eager, just like I once was. She asked me, how do you spot resume fraud? And I smiled. Look for the gaps, I told her. Look for the inflated titles. Look for big claims with no proof behind them. And always, verify with the real employer. Not just the reference they hand you. Did you ever catch somebody? She asked. Once, I said. It was personal. But I handled it like a professional. That's the whole secret. You can have history with someone, and still do your job with integrity. She wrote that down. And then I looked at the date on my calendar. The anniversary of the morning I stepped over a diaper bag and walked out a back door that everyone in that house was sure would lead me straight back to them. Years ago, I typed myself a little note and saved it. And I've never deleted it. It's just one word. Free. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. If you've ever walked out a back door, if you're standing at one right now, hand on the knob, trying to decide. I want you to hear me. The front door isn't the only way out. Sometimes the door they're not guarding is the one that saves your whole life. Some doors you walk away from. Some doors close behind you. And some doors, like the back door I took 7 years ago, lead you to exactly the place you were always meant to be. If this story meant something to you, share it. Somebody in your life might be standing at their own door tonight, and they might need to hear it. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this one, real people, real boundaries, real freedom. And drop one last comment for me, tell me about the door you walked out of. I'll be reading. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, nobody gets to keep your time but you.